Hello, hello. This is Johnny, and you're watching Channel 910. If you're new here, welcome in, and if you're a repeat offender, welcome back. I'm doing something a little different today. You may have seen from the title that I'm doing a challenge. This is called the Red or Dead Challenge, initially started by the Vinyl Scavenger. So appreciate the great idea on this and kind of kicking it off, and it's starting to kind of spread like a weird vinyl virus throughout the community. My introduction to this challenge was watching the AV Room with Chris, and I noticed that he was doing his own version of this video, and I thought this is a great little challenge, great little concept. I'd love to get in on this, so I decided to do my own version of the video, and I'm going to actually buck the trend a little bit. I haven't seen anybody else do this yet, but I'm going to directly challenge 3 different YouTube personalities to also do the Red or Dead challenge, and that is going to be my buddy Joe Williamson, my other buddy Amy at Esky Knows Vinyl, and my 3 buddies that are all over on 3 Men on the Record. That would be Scott, Jake, and Sean. I'm challenging all of you as 3 collective personalities to also do this challenge. So what are the rules? So the way I understand it, the way I'm going to do it here, is you have to pick 5 albums, all of which have a red spine. Now, it could be a red cover, it could be a red back, but the spine has to be red, or at least predominantly red. Now, the dead part of the challenge is open to interpretation from the way I understand it. And so the way I'm going to interpret this is that I'm going to pick 5 albums with artists who are not with us anymore, but I've also upped it to the point that there has to be a song, or the title of the album has to have the word dead in it. And it'll maybe make more sense as we get going. But so the video doesn't get long, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the red portion. So I will actually start off this portion with an honorable mention because the album does not have a red spine, but the title of the album is literally Red. And that's the one right over my shoulder here. That's Taylor Swift with Red. So it doesn't make it into the 5 because it doesn't have a red spine. It's a black spine with red font. So I can't count that one, but I mean, it is named Red. So, yeah. But my first pick is probably going to be somewhat obvious, and no one else has picked this. So there was another Beatles album that was picked for a red spine, but I have chosen a different one and maybe the more obvious, but I'm going with 1962 to 1966. This is affectionately known as the Red Album. It actually happens to be the red vinyl version, the US pressing of this. This was released in 1973. I don't think there's anything I can say about this that hasn't already been said. This is usually the starting point for most people getting into the Beatles. This is the early stuff, of course, 62 to 66. So all of the kind of beat version of the Beatles before they went psychedelic. Absolute must-have for any collection. If you are not familiar with this record, I don't know what rock you've been under, but crawl out and at least go check this out. This is a little group from Liverpool known as the Beatles. My next pick for its red spine will be Collective Soul's Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. This is the 1993 debut album from the group. Include the single Shine, as well as some other great tracks. I personally like Breathe and Love Lifted Me. This one actually is pretty much just Ed Roland of Collective Soul. These were kind of the early demos that he had just thrown together, and after the record label heard Shine, they wanted a whole album put out. So the band Collective Soul kind of sees the self-titled album from 95 as being their technical first album, but this one still exists as it is, and it has probably their most popular song to date on it. So you kind of have to count this one, and with its red spine, it definitely makes the list. So now we're going to go back to 1991 for our next red spine, and this is Blood Sugar Sex Magic from Red Hot Chili Peppers. This is the big one that kind of propelled them to fame with hits like Give It Away and Under the Bridge. This one blending alternative and funk and a little bit of hip hop. It's just a great all-around record from cover to cover, and I think still stands as the defining album for this group that has gone on to just become super famous worldwide. But if you have to have at least one of their albums, I highly recommend this one to add to your collection, Blood Sugar Sex Magik 1991. So my next red spine is probably going to be the most obscure of the bunch, and that is 1998's Rising from Stuck Mojo. If you're not familiar with this band, it is a kind of a funk rap metal band from Atlanta, Georgia. This was probably their most successful album, but they never really broke into the mainstream per se. This one is a repress. It is not the original. I have the original, but it doesn't have a red spine, so I had to go with the repress. It's actually on blue wax. This, if you like that late 90s metal sound, not quite as like cheesy as Limp Bizkit, but not quite as aggressive as something like Pantera or Sepultura. This is kind of that in between. Super upbeat, super groovy. They're from the South, so they have kind of a southern metal, southern rock sound to them. Stuck Mojo comes highly recommended. I've met these guys personally. They're also awesome people. So I would say Stuck Mojo definitely belongs on the red spine list today. So my last choice for a red spine actually happens to be an almost predominantly red cover too. This is what I've always referred to as the Russian concert album from Billy Joel. Technically, the word that is on there, the Russian word, actually does translate to concert from what I've researched. But this is the 1987 Russian concert. Billy Joel was asked in 1986 to come almost kind of be an ambassador for rock music to the USSR. So in 87, he actually showed up, played a number of shows in Moscow, a number of shows in, I believe it was Leningrad. So this is a kind of an amalgamation of the best of those shows put on to this collection. It's when The Bridge was out, so you're getting a lot of like the mid 80s Billy Joel type stuff in here, but he throws in some of the classics on here as well. You know, it's one of those that, yeah, it's a live album, but it kind of represents when, you know, we were in a time, you know, back in 1987, still in the Cold War, there wasn't a lot of U.S. influence in the USSR. So something like this kind of holds a special place in music history. So I'm saying, you know, Mr. Billy Joel with his red spine makes it onto the list. All right, so now we move on to the dead portion of the list, and like I said earlier, I've kind of interpreted it as yes, I'm saying that some artist on the record has to, you know, be with us no longer, but I'm also saying that there needs to be a song title or an album title or some kind of tie-in to the word dead. So I'm going to start off with it actually is a good segue because it also has a red spine, but it is Warren Zevon, Stand in the Fire from 1980. So now this album has I'll Sleep When I'm Dead on it. Now, again, it's a live album. So the track originally came off of his self-titled album, but I actually like the version on here better. It's got the longer guitar solo. It just feels a little bit more intense. It's a little slower than the album version. But you can't go wrong. This is a fantastic album. If you're not familiar with Warren Zevon outside of Werewolves of London, really great stuff. Great performer. And this album definitely, I feel, holds a place on this list because, yes, we did lose Warren in 2003. But the song I'll Sleep When I'm Dead it's honestly, for such a morbid title, it's such a fun song. So Stand in the Fire. And if you don't like live stuff, you can always catch that song on his self-titled album from, I believe it was 1978. But just look for the self-titled or Stand in the Fire, or hey, how about you just get both? So Warren Zevon, Stand in the Fire, I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. So my second pick for the dead list is also a red spine, coincidentally. This is the soundtrack for The Crow from 1994. So the Dead song on this album happens to be titled Dead Souls, and it's performed by Nine Inch Nails. Now, it is not a Nine Inch Nails original composition. It was originally recorded by Joy Division, and the singer for Joy Division, Ian Curtis, did pass away in 1980 at the age of 23. So there's your tie-in with the song. But I also am going to make a tie-in with the movie itself, because you see that name at the top there, Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee passed away tragically during the filming of The Crow in 1993. So The Crow soundtrack is 1994. The song for this one, Dead Souls. If you haven't heard the rest of this soundtrack, I implore you, please. This is classic soundtrack material right here. So I'm putting The Crow soundtrack from 1994 on my dead list. Okay, so the next one does not have a red spine, so we know we've kind of bucked the trend of the red spine, so can't make that tie-in anymore. But it does have a song on it that refers to Dead, and that would be the opening track, Dead and Bloated. This is Stone Temple Pilots' Core. This is their debut album from 1992. This happens to be, you can see up here, it is a Walmart version, but it's on red splatter, so we're still making the red correlation here. Dead and Bloated, very first song on the album. For a lot of us, it was our introduction to Stone Temple Pilots. Unfortunately, we did lose Scott Weiland, the lead singer for Stone Temple Pilots, in 2015. So yes, we have the song with the word dead in it, but we did unfortunately lose Scott some years ago. Everyone should be familiar with Core. If not, absolute necessity for your collection. So I'm adding Stone Temple Pilots' Core to the dead list. So in 2021, we lost the drummer Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones. So I am adding to the dead list Sticky Fingers, because Charlie Watts, as the drummer for this band, is on this record. And there is a song on here called Dead Flowers. Very, very cool song. It's the Rolling Stones basically being a country band. This album is iconic in many ways, from the artwork all the way down to the fact that this is the first album that was on the Rolling Stones actual label. So I want to say it was the first time we ever got to see this logo here that I know we're all familiar with. So iconic album. Super fun song with Dead Flower, which is odd because it's such a morbid name. But the tongue-in-cheek humor in the song and the delivery from Mick and using his kind of country accent, you just can't beat it, guys. It's the Rolling Stones. Charlie Watts passing in 2021, definitely unfortunate, but we're going to go ahead and put Sticky Fingers on the dead list. So the last one that I'm going to include on my dead list is an artist I absolutely love, super talented guy. Unfortunately, we lost Harry Nilsson in 1994. So this is Son of Schmilsson, and the song that I'm picking off of this one is I'd Rather Be Dead. Now, if you want to talk about probably the most humorous of the songs that I've talked about, it's absolutely this one. Harry performs this song with a seniors choir from London. So you have a lot of elderly people led by Harry Nilsson and an accordion, all singing together saying, I'd rather be dead. It's hilarious. It's something only Harry Nilsson could pull off. Very kind of niche album, but you've got great artists on it. Ringo Starr's on this. George Harrison is on this. Klaus Vormann plays bass on this. There's so much talent on this record. It's kind of a who's who of popular music artists in 1972 when this thing came out. So Harry Nilsson, Son of Schmilsson. It's a unique listen, but I'm definitely adding it to the dead list today. So there's Channel 910's Red or Dead list, 5 and 5. I want to thank the Vinyl Scavenger for coming up with this idea and kind of getting this thread going. Absolutely love watching some of these videos. to Chris over at the AV Room. I really enjoyed your video, and it inspired me to do this, so thank you. And again, I'm challenging my friends. I want to see these videos. Don't let me down. And while I'm at it, shameless plug here, guys. If you liked this list, if you would like the video, that would be awesome. If you're not subscribed, it's an easy click right down there. Leave your comments too. Let me know what you think about these albums. I know some of them were kind of mainstream. I know some of these other videos I've seen are like some really obscure stuff. But hopefully it was entertaining enough to share with you guys some of the music and some of the stuff that I pulled off of the shelf for this quick list. So I appreciate you watching. Hope I get your future views, and we'll see you out there in the community, guys. Keep them spinning.